We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. Welcome back to Paring Down, everyone. My name is Shannon. Good morning. If my voice sounds a little lower than usual, that's because I am recording earlier in the day than usual. It's 8:25 a.m. on a Saturday, but I'm so happy to be here as always. This week, I have felt a little bit of burnout. I don't know if you've been there. Something tells me you have. As I've been sharing with you, I am finishing up final edits on my book proposal. So the way the book process works is I sent my proposal to the literary agent who signed me, which is so exciting. And then she takes that proposal and, she goes to sell it to the publishers who will then, publish it, get it in the big stores, all that good stuff. So we are working together on refining the proposal I sent her before she sends it to the publishers. And one of those things is she wants my writing sample to be longer. So I had written the whole introduction and half of chapter 1 when I turned it into her. And so I just needed to finish chapter 1. Anyway, the point is that I've been working really hard on writing the rest of that chapter this week. As some of you know, because you're subscribed, I also have a Substack. So it's Paring Down on Substack. I feel like Substack confuses a lot of people who have never heard of it because, that's how I felt. But it's just a blogging platform. If you remember in 2008, it was blogspot.com or WordPress or whatever. And it's just a really easy way to send your writing to the people who want to hear it because it goes straight into email. So I actually use Substack for my weekly Less Express newsletter. And if you sign up for the free version of my Substack, then you're essentially just signing up for the Less Express. But then I also have premium members who pay $4.13 a month. I guess it's $5 a month. But if you do the year, like $50 a year, and it's down to $4. And basically I write a blog post for them on Mondays as well. And then I do short, mini podcast type things. They're 3 to 4 minute long audio voice notes on Fridays or every other Friday called Decluttering Hype Sessions, where I just help keep you on track with, your enthusiasm and your motivation to declutter. So those blog posts and those voice notes and then writing the book. And of course, then there's the social media aspect of what I do and then planning for the podcast. All of a sudden, my brain was like, beep, beep, beep. We've had too much decluttering content. You are burned out. And you guys know I love talking about decluttering and intentional living, but my brain was just really fried. And I thought, well, this is probably a good subject to bring up on the podcast. We're going to be talking about decluttering burnout today. It's probably a little different than my burnout where I'm talking about decluttering a lot. And for you, it's the burnout of decluttering too much in your house and feeling really overwhelmed and unmotivated to continue. But really, the 10 points that I want to share today can apply to anything that is making you burned out. Oh, there was one more thing that was kind of burning me out, but I also do need to tell you about because it's an incredible opportunity, is that I am one of over 100 speakers at this huge virtual conference. It's like an online summit. It's called the Get Organized Headquarters, GOHQ, GoHQ Summit. And it's all things organization, decluttering, home management, even crafting. It's really incredible. You have these huge names that, not that I'm a huge name, but I am honored to be among the names of people speaking. They give video classes where you can just pop in, choose the title of the class that sounds like something that you want to hear about, and listen, take notes, enjoy the conference from the comfort of your own home. And it is free, which is wild. You can upgrade to, I forget how much it is right now because the prices change as we get closer to the event, but I'll have the link in my show notes to sign up. The free ticket, you can watch all of it. It's just you can't watch it forever and ever. Amen. And then the premium ticket, you have a longer or maybe forever. You can go back and watch all of the classes because there are so many that you will probably want to watch and won't be able to get to. So that's what the premium pass is, but you can absolutely just get a free ticket and then go enjoy all of this incredible information from experts in the field of home management. So the GoHQ virtual online summit will be from September 8th through September 13th. Again, it's at your own convenience in that window of time, September 8th through the 13th, 2025, in case you're listening to this, later in the future. Sorry if you missed it, but it does happen every year, so keep an ear out. And everyone else, go grab the link from the show notes to sign up for your free ticket. Okay, now that we've made it very clear that I have been a busy Betty lately between all of the books and the summits and the, podcasts and the writing and or the whatever it's called, Substack, let's get into this little chat about burnout. You may or may not remember that recently I did do an episode called How to Stay Motivated to Declutter. And that was about knowing your why, like really getting to the root of your core values and understanding what's the motivation behind your decluttering so that you will want to keep going even when it feels hard. But this episode's a little bit different. This is not just about knowing your why and how to stay motivated. This is an episode for when you are plain exhausted, when you are mentally and you're physically burned out, and decluttering feels like such a slog that there's just no way. But you know your why, you know why you want to keep going. You're just a human being, not a robot. And so sometimes you hit a wall. If this sounds familiar, first of all, know that you are not alone. Decluttering burnout is very real. It does not mean that you're failing. It does not mean that you do not care. It just means that you need a little bit of a reset. Oh, earlier I said 10 ways, 10 things I'm going to talk about. It's actually 7. But anyways, today I'm going to share 7 ways to overcome that decluttering burnout, to give yourself that reset that you need so you can keep moving forward without giving up altogether. Number 1. Shrink the task. You already know to do this. You know to zone down. You know not to look at your entire house or your entire garage or your entire guest room because that will be extremely overwhelming. But especially when you're feeling burned out, odds are is you've lost sight of the zone and you've started to step back and look at the whole picture again. And then you just feel like, how am I going to do all of this? Like that's how I was feeling this week. How am I going to show up for this summit, get this book proposal done, get my blog post done for the week, prep and record and edit the podcast, create my author video, record the audiobook version of the first 2 chapters of my book, make 7 reels for the entire week. I mean, no wonder I was tired. I was looking at all of that and thinking, this is endless. And that's how we feel when we look around our houses and our garages and our storage spaces. We just think this is just impossible. Sorry, there's my early morning voice coming into play. So when that burnout hits, remind yourself you've probably stopped looking at just one little zone at a time. You've probably slid back into that overwhelming viewpoint that does lead to burnout. So shrink the task. Zoom in on something tiny, maybe even tinier than the zones you're usually working at. Let's say that you are decluttering, I don't know, your kitchen. And normally you just put on some music and declutter a couple of cupboards for 45 minutes. If you are burned out, if you're like the thought of going into my kitchen and decluttering for 45 minutes makes me want to die, then shrink the task. Say, I am just going to go through the baking sheets today. I'm going to get rid of the ones that I never use, that are awkward sizes, they have weird stains, everything sticks to them, whatever it is. And that's your decluttering for the day. Shrink the task. It's okay. You did something. We're still having that forward momentum because we do want to keep momentum going. Stopping altogether. We're going to talk about rest, but stopping altogether can be dangerous because then you never pick back up with that momentum that we need. But shrink the task. Clearing out your baking sheets might take 5 minutes max, but it gives you the sense of accomplishment. You get that visible result, and it makes decluttering feel doable rather than overwhelming. One way that I shrunk a task this week was I was thinking about all the social media content I needed to create. And I thought, I am just going to go to my little B-roll folder in my phone where I have a bunch of videos of me, cleaning or decluttering or just like a bunch of weird videos, right, that I can pull from. And I'm going to take a quote that I love to just write random sentences down in my phone. I literally have a Word document called shareable sentences. And I just went in there, copy, pasted that on top of the B-roll, and I was done. It took me 7 minutes, if that, because I had to choose a trending audio, and I was done. So I shrunk the task down, and it made me remember that this is doable one little piece at a time. All right, my second tip here is to switch to maintenance mode. Big purges of deep clutter. So I'm talking garage, storage unit, basement, attic, the room where you throw everything in your house, like a guest room. These big purges are very exhausting. And sometimes we burn out because we're pushing too hard on the deeper clutter. And then all of a sudden, our house is a mess and everything's a mess. We've got the storage unit that's taken over. We've got now our bedroom stuff is everywhere. Our kids' toys are everywhere. And like, it is just burnout central. We're like, oh my gosh, this is an impossible situation to stay on top of. Okay, so maintenance mode means just focusing on what you've already decluttered and focusing on your spaces that you live in just to keep them tidy. So maybe you need to step back from decluttering your deeper clutter for the week and instead focus this week on just putting things back in their homes, straightening out the counters, sorting the papers that land on your, if you have a paper tray or if you're like me and I don't, which I've explained before, but quick overview. I don't have a paper tray anymore because it was just a good excuse for me to throw mail there to die. And then 6 months later, it would be overflowing. And I was so paralyzed by the amount that I needed to do that it was a disaster. I'm not responsible enough to go through my mail once a week, apparently. So now I just do it as it comes in. So the point is straighten your counters, get rid of any papers that have landed on your counter. Maybe come up with a couple brand new systems that work. For me, I realized, as I've told you before, there's this one sweatshirt that is going to kill me in this house. And it's my husband's zip up hoodie, which he takes off because he's an angel and he does the dishes usually after I go to bed like a little princess, and he stays downstairs like my little Cinderella doing all the dishes after his long day at work, putting a roof over our heads. Don't know why he married me. And he takes off his sweatshirt to do dishes, but he doesn't want to bring it to our room because I'm asleep in there. And so he usually just throws it on the back of a kitchen chair. And then I come downstairs and every day there's a sweatshirt on the back of the kitchen chair, and it drives me bonkers. And so at our old house, we had these hooks, and I was like, can this live on the hook? And for about the last 2 months that we lived in that house, the sweatshirt mostly sort of found its way to the hook. Well, we don't have a hook in this house, and we haven't set it up yet, and there's not a good place for a hook. But Tidy Dad, Tyler Moore, he was a guest on my podcast. He shared a link to these hooks that attach to hangers. And I was like, well, that's smart, because I know my husband, as he's quickly trying to get to the dishes, isn't going to hang up his sweatshirt in this little hall closet situation that we have right off the kitchen, which is where I would like it to live. But if there's just this little clip, it's not a hook, it's a clip. If he just has to clip bloop, right onto the little hood, and that's all he has to do, I think we got a winner, people, right? So look around your space and think of brand new systems that might work to keep it more tidy more often. Maintenance mode is simply keeping progress from slipping backwards. And sometimes that is the most powerful thing you can do in a state of burnout. Stop trying to make so much more forward progress and see maintenance as progress in and of itself until your brain can, reset and have a little bit more bandwidth to make that actual progress. So what that looks like for me this week is that I am not going to be thinking about any of the projects that I think would be great. Like, I want to make a speaker reel so that I can hopefully do more public speaking gigs. Anything that is not like a basic responsibility that I have to people who have already subscribed or are paying, or I, have a podcast network or an agent. Oh, I forgot. That was another thing this week. I had this big reel with the American Cleaning Institute to talk about laundry safety. So I have these obligations, to people who I have contracts with and deadlines with the agents and whatever. But if it is not one of those, then I am not focusing on it right now because I don't have that kind of a bandwidth because I am burned out. And just remember, eventually you'll get to that again. We have to trust in the ebbs and flows of our energy. So don't feel like because you're burned out now, you're always going to be burned out. You're not, especially if you do the things on this list, you know? Okay, so first thing is shrink the task. Second is switch to maintenance mode. Third, celebrate wins. Burnout often happens because we only notice what's left to do and we forget how far we've already come. So take a minute. Really think about what your house used to look like. Think about what your closet space used to look like, what your kids' toy room used to look like. If you've been working hard to declutter to the point that you are now burned out, that means you've probably made more progress than you've given yourself credit for. So go to an area of your home that is decluttered, that you love now. For me, it's my closet. I open my little closet doors, and it's not a walk-in closet here. It's just, a wall closet with those ugly folding, bifold, trifold, I don't know, doors. But I look at it and I can take a deep breath because it's beautiful. All my clothes fit so happily in there. There's so much extra space between the hangers. It's not all stuffed together. Do that. Go get that dopamine hit of the win that feels really good in your house. Go to your favorite corner of the house that you have decluttered. I don't know, your bookshelf, your desk. Go somewhere and be like, this feels good. Yes, ma'am, you did that. Give yourself that pat on the back. Remind yourself of how far that you have come. You can even share it. Sharing your wins make you feel more excited about them. So if you have a friend that you can text a picture of your closet to and be like, do you remember what my closet used to look like in college? Look at this. I'm so proud. I have to text you a picture. Do that. Call your husband upstairs or your wife upstairs and say, look what I did. Now, if you don't have a friend or a husband or a wife that you can do that with, or they would be like, okay, good job, you're a weirdo, please DM me or email me those pictures. When you guys send me your wins, when you are like, look at this empty counter. To anyone else, they would just see a picture of an empty counter. There's nothing exciting to look at. I know what went into making that counter so clear. And I'm so excited for you, and I get a secondhand dopamine hit. So please send it to me, pairing_down on Instagram. My email is pairingdownpodcast@gmail.com. Girl or guy, but it's mostly girls listening. Please send them to me. Celebrate that win and let me celebrate with you. And then that will help you break through that burnout because it feels so good. When I finished chapter 1 of my book this week, after pushing hard to get that done, like it was a heavy lift because my book is not, it's exciting. I can't wait for you to read it someday, but it involved a lot of research and I had like research books all around me and I'm like trying to distill the information and still say it in like my fun tone that makes it sound like it was the easiest thing in the world to write. Like it just flew off the tips of my fingers. But in reality, I'm like fact checking what year Prussia became its own nation, right? Like it was a lot of work. And when I was done, I was so proud of it that I called my husband at work, bless his heart, and was like, can I read you the second half of chapter 1? Like, do you have 5 minutes? And he was like, sure. I'm running an entire Coast Guard base with 2,500 people. But yeah, read me the second half of chapter 1 of your book about decluttering. I love him. And so I read it to him and he was so excited and he was like, oh my gosh, like that's insane. That you were able to do that. That's the coolest story ever. I was on the edge of my seat. His excitement made me excited. And now I'm going into this weekend, like really excited to dig into the edits before I send it off to my literary agent, right? Sharing it with other people gets you enthusiastic. And as you know, from the episode last week or 2 weeks ago about enthusiasm, that's what makes you want to keep going. So celebrate those wins so that you can feel excited again. Hey guys, it's time for your ad break. Each week I like to say a huge thank you for your graciousness that these are part of the podcast. Here we go. I was talking to my girlfriend recently who has been struggling with some health issues, including infertility, and her doctor told her that her ovaries had been damaged. It wasn't a genetic problem, but likely exposure to toxins. And we know that we have these PFAs everywhere now, from the air we breathe, to the clothes we wear, to the water we drink. And I don't say this to fearmonger. I just want to share with you something that has eased my mind when it comes to what me and my children are drinking, and that is our AquaTrue. More than ever, it is so important to have really pure filtered water in your home. And AquaTrue is a reverse osmosis water filtration system that not only takes care of PFAs, but any other contaminants in our water, which are found so commonly in tap water. as well as in typical pitcher filtration systems that don't have as advanced of technology. Their countertop purifiers work with no installation or plumbing unless you want one of the bigger purification systems that go underneath your sink. They have that too. We use it for our dog's water because our dogs are bougie and deserve the best. My husband uses it in his coffee, tea, cooking. I mean, we use this for everything to maintain our health. I think we forget how often we drink water in different things that we consume, like soups and, stocks, all of that. So this is a really, really valuable product for your health. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a fantastic gift. I've told you this before, but we got one for my in-laws for Christmas. So today, my lucky listeners, you receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU. So it's AquaTrue, but without the E at the end. aquatrue.com and enter the code PAIRING. Remember, there's no I in pair. It's PARING at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code PARING. My fourth tip, if you are feeling burned out, change your environment. Sometimes the fatigue isn't even about the items itself. It's about what space you're in. So if one room feels extra draining to you, move somewhere else. For example, the kitchen might feel like a heavy lift today. You might just feel decluttering burnout. I don't want to go into there. But if you think about just going hard underneath the bathroom sink, it might not feel as exhausting. Or, hey, I'm going to just get into my nightstand drawer, which I've been putting off forever. It'll take me 15 minutes tops. And then it's going to feel so good to go to bed every single night knowing that my drawer next to my bed is empty. Like that might feel more approachable for you. So changing your environment refreshes your energy. It refreshes your perspective. So think about what you can do that changes your space a little bit so that your brain doesn't feel like it's in this dark hole of the same place it's been over and over again trying to get through. Again, to use a little example from my week, I didn't change rooms where I was writing, but I changed subjects. So weirdly enough, instead of just saying I need to write less because my brain is exploding, I thought yesterday morning, what do I want to write about? And it wasn't my book. And I was like, well, then I shouldn't be writing my book because readers will be able to tell if I don't feel like writing it. But I knew I needed to keep the progress going. And my daughter was outside dancing to A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman. And if you haven't heard that soundtrack or watched that movie, it is the most underrated soundtrack of all time. The songs are so beautiful. They make me feel like I can't even breathe. They're so gorgeous. Anyway, and then you have my 5-year-old daughter twirling around and in the great Alaskan outdoors with mountains and the Gulf of Alaska behind her. And I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And so I decided to write about it. It's like, I'm going to write about my daughter outside and capture this moment the best that I can. And hands down, it's one of my favorite things I've ever written. I ended up sharing it on my Substack for free for everybody. And it's also on my Instagram. And I'll link to the post in the show notes too, so you can grab it there. So go read My Daughter Needs Me. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written. But it was because I wanted to write it. And funny enough, when I was finished writing that, all of a sudden I felt, oh, I want to write the rest of this book. I had 1,000 words left of the chapter. When we change our environment, when we work on something that doesn't feel as exhausting to work on, it doesn't deplete us further. Instead, it will then give us our energy back to go accomplish what we actually want to accomplish. So I was exhausted yesterday, and weirdly enough, I didn't write just 1,000 words. I wrote 2,000 words. But the first thousands of those was something completely different than I'd planned to work on. Number 5, set a good enough pace. Burnout often comes because we are expecting perfection. Everything must be decluttered today, or this room must look like a magazine spread. That sets us up for exhaustion. Instead, aim for steady, good enough progress. I am not a perfectionist. It is one of my favorite qualities about myself, as reflected by my really boring backdrop to this podcast if you're watching on YouTube. Or when I started the podcast, if you guys will remember, I was recording in my closet when it was a walk-in closet with clothes all around me. My cover art was ridiculously bad, but I don't care because it was good enough. It was good enough to push record and get this into your guys' ear. And here we are. Look, a little successful podcast almost 2 years later. So setting a good enough pace is going to get you where you want to go rather than trying to make it perfect from the get-go or trying to do it too fast. So if you're feeling burned out, stop saying I need to declutter 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day is actually really significant. I mean, I support it. If you're able to do 30 minutes or an hour a day and get through a space quickly, I love that. Do 4 hours a day. Go ham. But if you're feeling burned out, aim for steady, good enough progress. That could be as small as one drawer a week. Say, I'm on Mondays going to go through a drawer or a cupboard. I'm going to, hey, wait, here's an idea. I'm going to declutter once a week on Tuesdays when the Paring Down podcast comes out. However long her episode is, I am going to declutter during that time. There you go. That's a easy way to make it feel manageable and like it's not taking over your life and you don't need to get burned out, but you're still making good progress. And then when you feel like you're in a less burned out stage of life, then yeah, you can declutter more than just on Tuesdays. But give yourself permission to say that's good enough for now. That is still caring and that is still making progress. And the reduction of that overwhelm will actually sustain your decluttering in the long term instead of coming to a screeching halt and throwing the towel in altogether. Set that good enough pace. Number 6, work backwards. Don't focus on all the stuff that you need to get rid of. Focus on what you want to keep. One of the biggest reasons burnout sets in is because every item feels like a decision. That decision fatigue is just exhausting, right? Should I keep this? Should I get rid of it? What if I need it someday? It's really tiring to stay in that mindset. No wonder you're getting burned out. So flip the script and instead of saying, what should I get rid of? Ask yourself, what do I actually want to keep? Look at your little zone and say, what in this zone do I use all the time or makes me really happy or whatever? Good feelings, sparks joy, super useful, whatever you want to call it. This makes decluttering more of a default rather than an exhausting decision. So you gather the things that are really useful and that you love, and by default, the rest doesn't make the cut. That's the extras, the duplicates, the stuff that's been sitting untouched. Don't overthink it. Don't go through these different exhausting questions about whether or not you should keep it. Just be like, this is clutter. It did not make the cut for things I want to keep. A clear yes. If it is not a clear yes, it is a no. And that helps getting rid of stuff feel a lot easier and like there's less burnout involved. Now, I know it's easier said than done to get past a lot of those mental roadblock questions, especially those what ifs. So I do encourage you to go listen to episode 77 here of Paring Down called What If I Regret Getting Rid of It? I kind of help you figure out how to get past that particular question. But in general, the idea here is to work backwards. So build around what stays rather than obsessing about what leaves. All right. And the last tip here for conquering that decluttering burnout is to set a decluttering Sabbath. I like saying it this way rather than just like take a break, because to me, a Sabbath feels super intentional. In religious terms, it's a matter of taking a rest day from work, exercise routines, home projects, anything at all in order to rest in your Creator. I'm not talking about that kind of Sabbath. I'm just taking the word because I think it's really useful. Because the counterintuitive truth is that sometimes the best way to keep moving forward with decluttering is to stop, not to hit the brakes and throw in the towel. That's not what I mean. To stop for a day or for a week, like to take an intentional break, not one that you take because you've reached the end of your rope and you are just depleted on the couch and like, I can't keep going. And that's what makes you stop, but an intentional planned rest with the intent to keep going afterwards. So commit a day, maybe once a week, maybe 1 week a month. I don't know, however you want to do it, where you commit to not decluttering at all, where you say, I'm not going to, even if the mood strikes me, I'm not going to, because that's what makes it intentional. It's not just at the whims of how you feel. It is saying, I have planned ahead that I'm not going to declutter today. And that gives you the power back. You're not letting the decluttering rule you, because that leads to burnout. You're saying, I'm in control here. And I say today is a no decluttering day. Not only are we stopping the physical work that can feel really exhausting, and of course the mental gymnastics that decluttering can feel like sometimes, but it's also a chance to enjoy the progress you've already made. It goes back to celebrating the wins. Walk into your cleared space, maybe light a candle, sit down with a book, let yourself feel the calm that you've created. Go do a puzzle with your kids in the playroom where you now have more space on the floor to do a floor puzzle. Whatever enjoying your space looks like, do that specifically on your decluttering Sabbath day, because that will give you that motivation to want to pick back up, but also to remember what it's all about. It's not about just this exhausting project. It's about what your life will look like and how free you'll feel. We want to get little doses of that to remind us of why we're doing this in the first place. So give yourself that structured rest. One of the ways that I wrote my first book, which I've shared before on here, is that I gave myself a word count for the day, which was 500 words a day on Monday through Friday. And I would not write more than that. I had to write 500 words, but once I got there, I would finish the sentence and I would stop. I wouldn't say, oh, I'm on a roll, I'm going to go to 800 words today, because that would lead to burnout. Because then the next day I would be more likely to be like, well, I did 800 yesterday, so maybe I'll only do 3 today. Or I did 1,000 yesterday, so I can skip today. I lose the habit, the momentum. I'm burned out because my brain worked so hard yesterday, so I don't feel like writing again today, right? Like, I specifically gave myself a limit, structured rest, 500 words a day, and that's it. And that's how I wrote my entire first book when I was first pregnant and then postpartum and had a toddler and a baby at home. It could have felt impossible, but because I had the rest built into the system, it actually worked out just fine. And hey, that book did really well. And I think it's one of the reasons that my literary agent signed me. So don't underestimate the power of rest when you do it in an intentional manner. Let rest become part of the system, not a sign of quitting. So 1, shrink the task. 2, switch to maintenance mode. 3, celebrate wins. 4, change your environment. 5, set a good enough pace. 6, work backwards, focus on what you want to keep. 7, set a decluttering Sabbath. Remember, decluttering burnout happens to everyone. It does not mean that you have failed. By implementing these different tips, you can keep going in a really sustainable way and enjoy that life that you so desperately want, where you don't feel bogged down by all the stuff. And speaking of making your life easier, next week's episode is one that you do not want to miss. It is with Amanda Jefferson, who specializes in decluttering your technology and simplifying technology use. And so we're going to be talking a lot about how to make technology your personal assistant in a way that's not overwhelming, with lots of fun little hacks to simplify life using the modern tools that we have. So come back for that, and I will see you next week. Oh, and don't forget to go sign up for the Go HQ Summit. You don't want to miss it. Just click on the link in the show notes for your free ticket. All right, see you then. Bye. You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face. So thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at paring_down, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.